Welcome to our retirement, folks. Morning, folks. We're here at the studio at Sunnybank Mills, if I can remember the name. And I want to introduce you to somebody who's a kleptomaniac. She collects driftwood and all sorts of garbage at the side of the road and makes art out of it. They call her Jane Wood. And I want to introduce you to her. And here she is. There's Jane.
Hello.
Hi, Jane.
Hi.
Right, just before we have a look at your work, just wanted to ask you a few questions about yourself, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Have you always lived in Leeds? Is this your place of birth?
No, I was born in Kent,
Kent.
and then when I was 5, I moved up to the Wirral where my mum and dad were from.
Is that where you got your accent?
That's where I got my accent from. And and then I lived in Liverpool for quite a long time, and I moved over to Leeds about 15 years ago to be with Ted, my partner, and we've got our little lad Jacob, who's 13 today.
Wow. Okay. And how long have you been interested in artistic activity?
I did art at school, at secondary school,
Yeah.
a long time ago. And then what did I do? I went off and did a secretarial course, funnily enough. I was telling Jacob about that the other day because we were doing shorthand. But when I was about 23, which is quite old in going to university, I went and did a foundation course, and then I did a fine art degree. So
Where was that?
that's at Wolverhampton University.
Why Wolverhampton?
Well, you kind of apply to places that
Different places, and
you look at the kind of work
Yeah.
they're interested in that would suit the work that
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah.
So that's why I picked there, and I went on an exchange to America for a year, which was really good.
Wow.
Did that, then I came back home.
And what were you doing then? Nothing like you're doing now.
Well, it was a modular course I was on, so you tried out lots of different things in the first year you were there, and then I got into digital was becoming a thing then. This is quite a while ago. So I was into video, making lots of video work, and then I got into interactive multimedia. So when the internet started coming, I did a master's in multimedia in Liverpool.
Wow.
But I did all sorts of things, quite a lot of film and video, some moving image stuff on my university degree.
So that was in your 20s?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you have any employment?
Have I been employed? Yes, I've been employed. I did teaching in FE College for quite a while, at Wigan and Lee College, on art and design courses.
So you were involved in art. It was still art.
Yeah, it was art.
Yeah.
And then when I got into digital, I sort of, it's a different story. Got into healthcare and making digital products in healthcare for cancer patients to try and help them understand their diagnosis and treatment and making decisions, basically. So I did that for a long time and did what's called co-design. So you would design systems with the people that are going to use them to make sure that they work. So I've done a lot of that. And I've done all sorts of healthcare things since,
Right.
and mental health things.
Yeah. But you've been working from home, haven't you, recently?
Yeah,
The last few years, like.
Yeah, I started doing this about 2 years ago. I've always wanted to kind of tap into it. Well, I thought co-design was kind of creative, but this is very different. But my mum died, and it was a bit of not a wake-up call, but a moment of reflection. And thinking about what do I really want to do.
Yeah.
Me and my 2 brothers are the next line of people in our family that are going to die. So it was a kind of if you're going to do this, you need to get on and do it. So I piddled around in the loft for a long time, and a lot of this driftwood and the things that I find come from Anglesey, which is where my family spent a lot of time when I was a child, and I feel a place I feel really connected to and still visit. So I find a lot of the things there. So they're about, I suppose, memory, people, places, and for me it's been a process of getting over grief, I think, and loss, and then sort of reconnecting with yourself in a way, and your creative self.
So when I remember when I used to draw in a studio on my Todd years and years ago when I was younger, I used to have the radio on, and when I look at, I could tell you what was on the radio. When I look at different parts of a drawing, it'd take me maybe a year to do one drawing, and I could tell you what was on the radio, each bit of that drawing. Yeah. So when you look at your pieces, you're sort of talking about a connection. Do you have similar things about these pieces that you've got up here?
I mean, I think it's a broad kind of connection to a place, and the act of kind of going, collecting these things and being there. And then the way that I make things as well is I don't use any screws, nails, glue or paint. So I only use what I find, and that's kind of a challenge. It's a separate thing to what you're asking. But some of them, like this one particularly, this spoon was my mum's, and right. I just bound it with some rope that I, unravelled rope that I had, and I didn't really think about what I was doing. But it's been in an exhibition up in Edinburgh at the House of Smalls, and it's more, I think, about the binding of a mother and her daughter, and I didn't always have the best time with my mum, but that's what that symbolises, and the threads are quite worn and the shimmer's kind of gone, so that for me is a memory. But I suppose there are stories I can tell about these things.
Yeah.
This fork was in the cupboard, in the drawer at home for 5 years, and I did what I did with it and showed Jacob, my son, and he said, "Oh, that came from school, Mummy, I got that 5 years ago." And they let me have it for lunch, and they said I should clean it and bring it back, and it obviously never got back there.
You've got a fork up here. It's just a broken piece of plastic fork with some string wrapped round it.
Yeah.
You just found it on the floor, and what could have attracted you?
Well,
by that piece of broken plastic fork.
It's all very relevant to where we're standing now. Before I did that, I came on the heritage trail with Jacob, my son, and he got given a little wooden weaving frame, and I started thinking, oh, I could do weaving with the way that I make things.
Yeah.
And I had that fork, and it was like a ready-made weaving frame.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, and you've also, so you've had exhibitions of this stuff, haven't you, in the past, before you arrived here?
Well, yeah, I had...
You don't mind me calling it stuff?
Yeah, it's my stuff. These two pieces and another one that got sold, which is that one.
So that's...
We're in Sunnybank Mill.
Let's let me have a look at this here. You sold that in Sunnybank Mill?
Yeah.
Now these are prints that
these
you've done.
Yeah, these are cards of pieces that I've made.
Look, there's the spoon, the famous spoon.
Mm.
So you do gift cards. So what's do you have a website? How do people contact you?
I've got Instagram, and then there's a link to a little website that I'm in progress of making. So if people wanted to find my work, they could go to @JaneLWood on Instagram and find it.
Jane L. Wood on Instagram. Yeah. There, folks, Jane L. Wood on Instagram. There's a few more prints here that she's done, look.
That's going in an exhibition in
that is
Tension Gallery in London, at the beginning of July. It's a textiles exhibition called Airing.
Incredible. I don't know how you do all that. There you are, folks. There's some over this side. I'll show you these larger exhibits here. Look, I've seen a print of that. So it's just pieces of waste, throwaway wood.
Oh, but
objects,
they're all precious.
Discarded objects.
They are discarded and forgotten. Now, I think this is really interesting, this yellow one. I found this down the road from my house, and I don't know if you can see there, but it says, "Night had first fall of snow." And this had come out of somebody's kitchen.
It says what?
"Night had first fall of snow." So somebody's written on the wall, and I couldn't work out. There was somebody, the person it was to, and then the person that had written it, I couldn't work it out. But somebody has written on the wall, and this came out of a house that was being refurbished. And then but this is a bit of metal that I found, and this is a lid off something. But I just think it's really interesting, that little story. Why would somebody write that on the wall, and why about the snow?
It's interesting.
When did they write that? Who was it to?
Yeah.
And that's out of somebody's house. So I think all these things have a little bit of history. they've all been used for something before.
Yeah, we bought a house in a village opposite a pub, and it had been an inn in its past, and when we scraped the wallpaper off to decorate, you got this pungent tobacco smell that coming off the scraper, and that were interesting.
Yeah.
You know, to get that aroma of something that had gone on in the past. All these objects, like, you know, like that, some up there that somebody had wrote on a wall, you know, from years and years ago.
Well, see these.
It is interesting.
These, somebody's used that to stir paints, and somebody's used that a lot of times because it's got a rounded end.
Yeah, yeah.
So these are like somebody's tools. This, what was this red bit part of? I don't know. Why was that painted red? Does it come off a boat? I don't know. And
Did this move that we're in now to zero emissions and the planet, you know, and all that, did that have anything to do with why you wanted to start collecting on objects, using objects rather than going out and buy something new? Is it anti-materialistic?
Not really.
Not really.
I'm not really trying to make a statement about anything.
No.
I think that, you know, I find things and think, oh, the colour, the texture, the size of it, the scale, isn't that interesting? The contrast of the screws onto this wood.
So you're actually seeing this stuff as from an artist's,
yes, absolutely.
with an artist's
and I
eye.
pick them up, yeah.
You're like Mike, that friend of mine, Mick. He sees things that I just walk by, and it just annoys me because all I'm interested in is walking, and he's interfering with it by seeing things and taking notice of things.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've got things on here. I've had this for ages and I don't know when I'm going to use it, but I just think it... Can you see that?
Yeah.
I just think it's...
What is it?
It's a piece of fiberglass.
Right.
But it looks quite precious.
Okay.
Looks like it's got a bit of amber in it.
Yeah. Well, there you go, folks. Well, that's great. Thanks very much, Jane.
You're welcome.
How to wind up this video, folks. Just an artist popped into my life because I came to this studio.
Well, there you go.
Jane Wood. You can find her on Instagram.
At Jane L. Wood.
At Jane L. Wood. Yeah, thanks a lot, Jane.
Cheers.